Good morning and welcome to another episode of Birth the Middle Way. And today I'm super excited for this conversation and this episode. I'm here with Emma, of course, and Carly Ray. Carly Ray is a beautiful sister who I'm very much so looking forward to diving deeper with today. I think that she really, what I witness and what I observe is that she embodies something that's really important in this world today, which is no fear when it comes to speaking. She is fierce and she is bold and she shares her truth and she enters dialogue and about big topics and important topics. And as you listeners know, that's a big prayer that we hold with Birth the Middle Way is to invite in the more difficult, the more challenging, the more triggering conversations. And so I think you were designed for this podcast, Carly. and I'm super excited to dive in. So maybe we could just start, Carly, and you could share a little bit. The question that was coming to me this morning while I was in the shower was what in your life led you to have this quality, to really be able to embody this fierceness and really pursue the things that matter to you with full heart, with full ambition?
I was raised by a woman. My mother was a very outspoken. She did not follow the status quo norm culture at all. And the imprint, that she left on me to really be who you are was huge. Um, and with the work that I do, it's been this constant. I set very high standards for myself, and it's been this constant journey and work towards freedom. Really, freedom is the greatest thing that I seek in this world, in the way that I live my life, in the way that I use my voice, and it's that has been this guiding principle for me the whole way through. Is like, do I want to, just be like everybody else? And is there freedom in that? Do I want to homogenize myself, the way I look, my voice, the way I live my life? Or do I want to keep pushing outside the norm culture that we live in and really experience what my soul came here to experience? Because none of us came here to experience this homogenized status quo, just rat race fucking lifestyle. You
Right.
know, we are conditioned into that deeply. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so in the space of women's work, what is your mission? Like if you could summarize that for the listeners.
I mean, I don't think I can summarize that for the listeners. My 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 mission is always shifting and changing, and these days I'm like, do I even have a mission? I don't know. Um my work really is like, I want women in their bodies. I want women to understand their bodies. I want women to know what it means to be a fucking woman in this day and age, because most women have no idea what it means to be a woman right now. Getting our nails done and our hair done and fake tits and Botox in our face is not a woman, you
Mhm.
know? And
So,
so, really knowing that and living that to be an example for the younger generations, that's like one of the deepest things for me.
so, how do you define woman?
How do I define woman?
To get into
I
like
mean,
a
yeah,
controversial conversation while we're here.
Why
it's to
not?
me it's very plain and simple. If you are born with a uterus and ovaries, cervix, vulva, and vagina, you are a woman. Biology stands the test of time, and I am a big believer in biology. Right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so I guess from that point, let's dive in. I would love to ask you, how do you see specifically gender ideology affecting women and not only women but birthing women and mothers specifically?
I mean, the majority of women have totally left the throne of their lives and are just feeding and pandering and fucking kowtowing to these ideologies, to be inclusive, to be part of a community, because it's so hardwired in our biology, because we are mammals, to be part of a pack, right? And when we don't have a real sense of belonging within our own body, when we don't have a real connection with the earth and with God through our own body, we get lost. And this is one of the biggest things that has pushed the gender ideology, as far as I'm concerned. It is what is leading people down this deeply distorted, deeply sick path to think that anyone can be a man, anyone can be a woman, anyone can be any gender that there is. We are just normalizing mental illness. And it's at the root of it is people's, desire for belonging, because they can't feel any belonging in their own bodies.
Mhm.
They don't feel that belonging and that connection to the earth, to God. And they need to source it outside of themselves. And I think that's one of the biggest issues with our world in general. When we need to source anything from outside of ourselves, any sense of self-worth, any sense of belonging, and any sense of power, that's when distortion comes in, right? We've been
Right.
so
Yeah.
indoctrinated in this day and age to look for the guru and to pedestalize the people in the white coats, and it's all a bunch of fucking bullshit. And it's led us to exactly where we are in our world right now.
Right.
So,
Right.
okay, moving through this conversation of, you just defined what a woman is, and you just shared this really profound perspective here. And before that, you were speaking about how important freedom is. And how do you rectify and bring those two concepts
Good
together
question.
when
Totally.
I'm thinking,
Yeah.
an outsider listening, somebody that's, not part of this current
For sure.
conversation, they might be thinking, well, freedom to me is embodying what I think I am and who I think I am, which is a woman or is this or is that. So how do you
Totally.
hold that? Yeah.
I mean, I think some of the most important work a man or a woman can do is maturing in our ability to hold complexity and nuance in both hands at the same time. And there is a clear difference between your biology and your expression. You want to express as a woman? Fucking have at it. But are you a
Right.
woman? No, you're not a fucking woman.
Right.
And that level of reality needs to set in to people's consciousness and psyche and body. It's like, you can dress up however you want.
And call yourself whatever you want.
That's and to a degree.
Name-wise,
you can't call yourself
pronouns-
a woman.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Name-wise. Yeah. Name-wise.
Yeah.
Even not
But
in the realm of
are you-
pronouns, because pronouns immediately are like, I'm commanding you to agree with my reality, right? Like using she or he is a very specific
Yeah.
thing. And so for
Yeah.
me, like where I try to orient towards like kindness on a human to human level, it's one thing to speak broadly about a topic, but when you actually are standing face to face with a human, Mike just got it in a restaurant in PSAC last week where he was like, said something she, and the friend turns around and is like, they, and Mike's like, what? Like, just like, because we don't actually cross it so much here, and like was like, he's like, oh, okay, and then he's like, I don't know, should I have said something? Because we're very passionate about this topic as well, like it very much so matters to us, like the definition of a woman. I think it's an extremely, extremely sacred thing, and I think that we need to get clear on what that is and what that is not. And it doesn't mean to not be inclusive, right? Like, and that's the whole thing. It's like the whole drama of it is like, well, you're telling me I can't exist. It's like, well, why does the pendulum swing that far so quickly? Like, why is me saying you're not a woman equal that you're not allowed to exist? You can exist, but you just cannot claim womanhood.
Exactly.
Wear your dress, call yourself Paula, let's go, and
Exactly.
moving on.
Yeah.
Paula.
And and this is the piece of like the level of disembodiment, that people are living in, the level of delusion that people are living in, and is just incredible in our world right now. And it is so fascinating to note that because of where you live, the gender conversation isn't huge. This is very much a first world issue. And we have to really look at that. The fucking privilege to live where You live in such a privileged way that your
For
biggest
sure.
fucking issue is someone got your pronouns wrong. Give me a
Right.
fucking break. This is North
Uh-huh.
America and the first world is Disneyland. And people have
Straight
no
up.
fucking idea what the real world
Straight
is
up.
about. Yeah.
And
It's
so,
true.
so why do you think that this topic of gender is so
Mm-hmm.
controversial? Why do you think it's so inflammatory to say a woman is a human being that is born with a uterus and ovaries and vulva and why is that such a triggering concept in this time in history?
Because the storyline that is being pushed is that we are erasing minorities because trans people are the minority. Right? And that is just highly inflammatory in and of itself. But we always have to go back to the money and who is pushing this agenda and why is this agenda so fucking prevalent in our world right now, right? Like, this is not the norm. Because if it was the norm for people to be non-binary, transgender, humans wouldn't fucking exist because they're
Right.
pretty much infertile,
Right.
right?
And the thing is, there's a book that's called, I don't know if you guys are aware of it, it's called The Age of Gender. And it's this anthropological look at how when a society is actually on the brink of a fall, there is always an influx
Yes.
of gender ideology and gender confusion specifically. And it's exactly what you're speaking into. It's right. It's because, like, let's look at America, for example, this empire that came to be, built, the infrastructure that is, and basically elicited a certain level of privilege across the board to everyone living within that country. And people get comfortable, they get complacent, and they get distracted. We start to give all of this entertainment and distraction and all these things. People aren't out doing what you're doing, building a fence and cleaning your horse's hooves and, showing your dirty ass hands all over Instagram. Like, you're outside all day, every day, like actually grinding. That's not the norm anymore. And because of that, people have actually just too much time on their hands.
Exactly.
And then, you really spoke into an important thing as well with the mental illness thing. And for me as a mental wellness, practitioner, that's a big thing for me. Like, I studied in traditional universities. I took myself out of it because I didn't want any part of that game, but I studied there. And not once in any of the information, what did I receive? Just affirm somebody's reality. That's literally the opposite of what a therapist is designed to do. We are supposed to be innately rooted in curiosity endlessly. Why are you feeling there? Let's go deeper. Let's go deeper. But you have a 15-year-old kid come in who's a biological boy saying that he's a girl, and it's like, you're just supposed to affirm that. Like, it's so twisted. And I just actually struggle to understand how we have gotten this far. But I think that, it is that privilege thing that you're speaking to. And it's just the level of distraction, entertainment, depression, anxiety that just leads to people needing attention, right? And that sounds cold, and I'm not trying to be cold in saying that, right? Like, attention seeking, but I think at the root of it, we need to call a spade a spade. It is what it is, and it's not to be harsh and cruel. It just is that, it's a self-obsessive thing. It just is.
Yeah. We also have to look at humans in their physical form and structure. When we go back just to, the First and Second World War, we have generations in the first world country coming out of extreme states of trauma, going into the depression of the 30s. Mothers, we have a whole generation of mothers who had babies from an extremely depleted place, right? And everybody knows it. When you look at someone who is non-binary, who is trans, they all have a very specific look to them. They have these sunken in faces. They have no developed jaw or cheekbones. And we have to track back generationally and think about, okay, are these babies developing properly? Because to me, when I look at a person, no matter their gender expression or anything like that, when I look at a person and I look at their face and they have no facial structure, I know that their brain is depleted, guaranteed, hands down, and this is just in the birth world, this is a huge motherfucking problem.
God,
depleted mothers growing depleted babies, and this is the result of that.
Right.
we have humans who are not functioning at the level that a human is meant to function at. And that's just a reality, a fact that a lot of people don't want to accept, you know?
Right. And it's so beautiful. Like, like I really appreciate about you, like speaking, like, this is reality, right? And it's like, for me, the reason that's so refreshing is because, look, I care about people's feelings. Like, I work with people's feelings for a living. Like, I'm not walking around life trying to be volatile. And I feel like, you know, but to silence yourself or silence truth because you're trying to also coddle a person's emotional space, it's not helpful actually at the end of the day, right? And I think that that's the level of maturation that you're speaking to, is like, okay, how can we mature in our consciousness to be like, okay, I hear you, you're having an experience, you're in pain, and I can validate that, but I want to orient towards curiosity and actually help. Like, I really want to help you, and
Exactly.
it's not like I'm trying to like make you into what I want you to be. No, I want you to be the healthiest expression of you. And if you get healthy and you still think that you're whatever, okay, but like I want to see you healthy regardless, period. Mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually healthy. And I think spiritually healthy is actually a big nuanced topic that isn't really on the surface most of the time, and so there is a big piece there.
It's never on the topic of conversation for most people. Do not have the ability to even see nuance, let alone speak about nuance and sit with the complexity of this life, right? Now, do I think there are some people that truly are trans non-binary? Yeah, of course. Like, there are no hard and fast black and white rules in this life. Is it natural and normal, the rate at which we are seeing the trans community grow right now? Fuck no. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And we have to look, to me, it always tracks back to mother and father, the health of the sperm and the egg, what is happening in utero, how is that baby developing, does that baby have the nutrients, the environment, a healthy fucking uterus to grow in? And the answer, for the most part, in the majority of the world, is no, it's not healthy. And that's just the reality also.
Yeah, and this is a topic that I really want to explore here as well, is you're bringing up this concept of like the depleted mother carrying now a depleted baby, which creates depleted humans that are functioning or not functioning in society. And Sam, you brought up a really beautiful point as well about spiritual health. And I'm wondering, how would you encourage women, men, human beings to nourish themselves physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, so they're not depleted going into spaces of conception, of birth, of even just being in relationship with your womb and your uterus and your vulva and all of these pieces? How would you begin to meet that depletion?
Conscious conception work needs to start because of the reality of how sick our world and toxic our world is. Conscious conception needs to start 2 to 3 years before a baby is conceived, in my opinion. Minimum. Absolutely minimum. Real detox protocols need to happen. It's like we have multiple studies now showing microplastics in women's placentas, showing
Umbilical cords, yeah.
showing over 200 toxins in umbilical cord blood. Like, this is a absolute fucking reality that cannot be ignored, right? And of course we're having babies, we're having mass amounts of autism and neurological dysfunction because babies are not designed to develop in a toxic body, right? So that really needs to be taken seriously, and people need to do heavy detoxing. People need to have the foundations of circadian rhythm, of healthy foods, of drinking healthy water, of literally exercising and lifting weights and consciously building muscle. Nobody in this world right now is granted health. Nobody's born healthy anymore, really, you know? And health is a conscious decision that needs to be cultivated every single day. That is the truth, right?
And the reality is the uphill battle, right?
It is an uphill battle in this world.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean,
people have to choose.
look at modern day pregnancy care, right? It's like, let's do your 3 to 5 ultrasounds minimum. Let's make sure that you got your vaccines up to date, and like, when is the doctor asking
And
about
drink your
nutrition?
fucking
Yeah,
diabetes
yeah.
cocktail, and like that diabetic test drink in and of itself is
It
fucking
is atrocious.
horrendous.
The GBS test, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and most people, again, this ties back to the amount of privilege that people are living in, especially in North America, especially in first world countries. People are lazy. People want convenience. They don't want to put in the hard work to cultivate a truly healthy lifestyle, right?
And
Yeah,
that's an important point, I think, because like, to also bring it into the mental space, like, we have to look at the reality that our mind is actually conditioned towards convenience, right? And
totally.
from childhood. And so to come into an adult and to seek that process of maturation, like, I feel it in myself that it's something that I'm constantly battling. And I had, luckily I had an extremely hardworking dad, my mother as well, but my dad specifically very, very, very hardworking. And so I have some of that drive, but I can see it. Like, it's even with my partner and I, it's like constantly looking for that balance of like, where do we rest? And, but like, how do we push? How do we push life? How do we push our expectations? How do we always move towards expansion? And it's an interesting thing to really, witness in myself and then kind of see that reflected out in humanity. And it does bring compassion, because it's like, you want a burger, McDonald's drive-through, you want a massage, go up to the, anything. It's just everywhere. Everything is literally at just our fingertips. And so to think that, and it's such a devastating thing, the privilege thing, because what privilege does actually entail is that we have access to more. And so we
Hmm.
could actually, because of the privilege, be rising to heights that are just like
Insane.
monumentous,
Yeah.
insane, right? But like, the reality is that with that privilege, because we're also being conditioned towards these conveniences and, towards consumerism, materialism, all of these things, we're depleting and we're falling in the wake of privilege. It's almost like humans function better with more struggle. Like, what
And
is
we
that?
do,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
so,
we
yeah, wow.
have totally bought the story that this life is meant to be easy, and we're only supposed to feel joy and pleasure and good feelings all the time. And that is not the human. Your soul did not come to this earth purely for an easy ride. We came here to learn, and learning entails hard motherfucking lessons.
Right, right.
And if
I
you
played
don't
that
take those
video.
hard lessons, you keep coming back to learn
I played that video yesterday that you had on your story out loud because my partner's been like,
them.
in just like this, kind of moment of like being a bit tired from the constant push. And I really validated that in him. Like, he is a very hardworking man. He does so much. And it's just like a moment of like exhaustion in his field. And he wasn't even looking, but he overheard it. So I like turned it up and it was just this fierce video of this old man cleaning this horse's hooves. And he's just like, you need challenge in life, like, you need struggle, like, you need to go. And he's just like, oh my god, why are you playing that right now? but it's true ultimately,
It's true.
right? Like,
Mhm.
it is,
Well, it's
it
I see
is.
this with my horses. Like, when I grew up with horses, I grew up on a farm. Haven't had a horse since I was 18 years old. In the last 3 years, I've gotten 7 horses. And the norm story in the horse world is that horses are stupid, horses are accident prone, horses barely know how to survive without humans. And humans have domesticated horses so much that they put them in these teeny tiny little boxes, and then they wonder why they are not healthy, because
Right.
they have forced them into this domesticated life so hard that it is anti their biology, right? My horses are in extremely dangerous territory, extremely dangerous land, and they know how to fucking navigate it because they are challenged every single day. I've had a few accidents, especially my first year here, but in these last 2 years, we've had no accidents because the horses are growing because of that challenge, you know? And they're so intelligent. They know how to move safely through the land, and not injure themselves. It's absolutely fascinating to watch. And this ties over into humans perfectly well, because we are a domesticated human. There is very few people left on this earth that are true humans anymore. We are extremely domesticated. And then we wonder why we have all the issues that we have, because we're not meant to be domesticated, right?
Oh, that's profound. That like hit deep. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
And I imagine your horses also teach each other, like the ones that had the
Totally.
accidents in the first year. Now the new ones come in and they take each other around and like you got to watch that and you got to watch that, like humans would in community as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so powerful. And it to me it illustrates this domestication of being human as we are now. We are so removed from death and hardship because
Hmm.
everything, as you said, like we're just expecting that life should be easy, but that's not what a healthy relationship looks like. A healthy relationship isn't a relationship without conflict. It's a relationship that meets conflict, that shows up for repair.
Exactly.
A healthy immune system
Exactly.
isn't one that never gets sick. It's one that gets sick and has
And
an
repairs.
immune response, exactly, and then repairs. And that to me is what life invites us into all the time. We are met with difficult situations, with hardship, with conflict, with death, grief, loss, and we meet it. And we don't become resilient. I've been stepping away from this idea of being resilient, right? Because this definition means to go back, to bounce back, to return to the way that we were, but we become adaptable, we shift, we change, we
Or versatile,
evolve.
maybe.
We're versatile, exactly. But we're adaptable, right? Like we do change. We shape
Mhm.
ourselves into the person that can hold more nuance, more complexity, that can show up to difficult conversations and scenarios with more reverence and just, I guess, humility and the ability to hold all of the pieces that we can.
Yeah. I truly love Jane Goodall, and I watched a video of her yesterday, and she was speaking about to the greatest thing that chimpanzees have taught her, and she was saying it's conflict resolution. You know, in there, I don't know what a pack of chimpanzees is called, but they will fight, and I see this with my horses all the time. They will fight with one another, and then 10 minutes later, they're grooming one another because they don't hold on to these grudges, and their ability to repair and stay in relationship, because their survival is based on relationship, right? And the development of the nuclear family removed us out of community and made us so hyper individualized, and now our physiology and biology is just like fighting against this world that we've been pushed into in this way. And we really need to learn how to repair, how to sit in conflict with one another, and to move through it in a truly healthy way. It's absolutely critical for the health of a human being, right?
And that just speaks to such a big point, like my mind goes to two places. It goes into, romantic partnership and like the level of separation rate that we see right now. The second that things get uncomfortable, people are ready to run. Like we do not
Yeah.
have a capacity to be in a space of devotion and actually embody what devotion truly means. Like it means that there's going to be chapters where like maybe you don't even like your partner so much. It's like, oh, like this feels sicky and it feels gross, and it's like, but I choose you and I choose to show up for you because I trust that there's something on the other side of this conflict that actually is going to be way more expansive than anything that we've experienced. And it's,
Exactly.
even my partner and I right now, we're looking for just to have a therapist in our field forever, because we want to be developing the communication and sticking through the conflict and be in the level of transparency that is always going to elicit conflict. If you're not repressing things, if one or both aren't repressing things and keeping things held inside in order to keep the peace, there is inevitably going to be conflict.
Yeah.
And then the bigger picture, the way that comes into just like looking at our world right now, like we can look at what happened with Charlie Kirk, and how quickly people were just ready to she deserved to die and all of this stuff. It's like this man, like, regardless of whether you agreed with him, that's completely irrelevant, was shot in
Yeah.
the neck in front of thousands of people, a father and a husband, and he was speaking. Like, it just shows the degree to which humanity has lost the capacity to be in conflict and discourse and move towards solution-oriented resolution. And what we lose in that is the expansion and the growth.
Yes.
We
Exactly.
freeze ourselves.
Mhm.
You know, it's such a profound topic and such an important one, you know, and I think that that's why I feel so gravitated to you as well and your work, because I just feel you like fierce in it, you know. And I said to Emma when you popped off, I'm like, oh my God, like her voice is just so sweet. Like it's just such this contrast in her personality. Like she's just got this like sweet voice and like, but like this fierceness in you of like, you know, like I will show up to conflict and I will, you know, like everything in like even just small interactions I feel in you, like it's just like it's sharp, you know, like there's just like this fierceness in what the energy that you embody. And you know, I'm sure that it has made a lot of people uncomfortable. I would assume that you've received a lot of backlash in your journey, you know, from people that can't handle that, you know, but I actually think that it's a quality that we need to be moving towards, you know, and it's not about being hateful or
especially
bigoted.
for
Yeah,
women,
totally.
because women have been so conditioned to be quiet little mouses, to be a good little girl. And, you know, one thing that I absolutely hate about our current world is we want to blame the patriarchy for everything.
I agree completely.
But it's the women who abandoned their role as a woman in community, who quieted their fucking voices, who crumbled under the pressure, who didn't stand for what they believed in, and handed this world over into what it is now. As far as, you know, men have their role in it too, of course, but women we really need to take responsibility for our role in the world going in the direction that it has gone, right?
I would name the nuance there of like millennia and generations of very tactical manipulations, right? Like
For sure.
I would say
Yeah.
that like back in the day, the midwives that were, you know, being burned at the stake, that were standing in their medicine and in their prayer, you know, like I can have compassion for the women watching their mother, their grandmother literally burn at the stake and like, you know, feeling repressive from that experience,
Yes.
you know? And then just
Yeah.
like the little, like there are so many tactics, but in the wake of our privilege, not only our privilege, but our access to information in today's day and age, there actually isn't really an excuse anymore, you know? Like
There
is a path to really resurrecting that, you know? And like, yes, there is still nuance there, right? We cannot know what it is to live the life of another human being, right? Like I don't know the nuances of your life, of your trauma, of what shaped you and why, or you, or any other woman on this planet. And so I do, you know, try to look through the lens of compassion while also, you know, like calling forward the women of like, but let's rise in spite of, we can do this. We have access to everything that we need. There is no excuse anymore. So let's, you know, hold each other's hands and rise together, because yes, all of this stuff has happened, but staying in that victim mentality is going to just continue to put nails in our coffin.
Exactly. It's just perpetuating the problem in such a deep way. And it, like, I don't even have children, and it shocks me when, you know, I look at parents who aren't doing the work to leave a better earth for their children. It's truly mind-boggling to me that so many people are living in such a state of instantaneous gratification that there is no long game, you know? There is no forethought put into of how do I want to cultivate my life so that my grandchildren have a better life, you know, or maybe not a better life, but have a earth that can actually be taken care of, you know. Yeah, we've
Yeah, and
just
that
gotten
is
our
such
priorities so distorted in
right.
this day and age.
Right. And we are fighting against a system that wants us to have our priorities distorted, you know?
100%. Yeah, yeah, we
Yeah,
are in a battle right
we are.
now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the battle is deeply spiritual and deeply psychological more than anything.
Deeply. Yeah, which is why the foundations, people need a strong mind to survive this, right? And to not lose themselves in it and go like totally down the fucking conspiracy rabbit hole and go insane. You need to have this fortified, this nourished system that can stand strong and
Mhm.
stay rooted in yourself and stay healthy. And, you know, like it is a massive practice, especially for women, to not allow cortisol to run their fucking day every single day, which is
Mhm.
where majority of women's bodies are living, in a cortisol adrenaline driven state, because they are not choosing to take responsibility for their state, for their bodies, in the way that needs to happen.
Mhm. So, okay, we're bringing in this conversation on taking care of our bodies, specifically as women. And we were just talking about how important it is for women to also use our voices. And as both of you were talking, I kept just hearing this thought in my head saying, yeah, like the medicine of my womb has always been very vocal. It's been very loud. It's, you know, when I was birthing my son, I was making all of these sounds. When I mourned my son, I was bawling my eyes out and screaming and raging. When I like, and now I'm writing his story, I'm sharing, I'm speaking. There's so much vocalization here. And that is something that my womb asks of me all the time at various
Mm-hmm.
phases in my cycle, at various points in my life. And my question to you is, how do we develop a resourced relationship with our uterus, with our wombs as women? How do we fortify that so we can show up for others, so we can show up as women? How do we come back into this relationship first?
Number one is women have to stop medicating hormones. You know, the birth control pill, any form of birth control has to stop. Women have to stop taking the pain medication for painful menstruation, any, even chronic cannabis use. When we are choosing to daily alcohol, when we are choosing to numb out on a regular basis through any form of drug, pharmaceutical, or, you know, cannabis or alcohol, we are completely ignoring our womb's voice, for sure. And we have to be willing to sit in whatever it is, whether that's the pain, the screams, the grief, the disappointment, the anger, whatever it is that comes to the surface. We need to really be willing to sit in that, um, and feel it through every fucking cell in our bodies. Because it's one thing to say, yeah, I know that I have this grief, and it's a whole other ballgame to sit and feel it and let it work you, right? And then women have to courage the fuck up. Like, I was terrified when I first started speaking and using my voice. Like, my voice has not come naturally to me. It has been a constant push of, I want to be free. I'm not going to allow this fear to control me.
What was so scary for you? You said that you were terrified. What was the terrifying piece?
I mean, terrified of being judged, terrified, you know, I'm sure there's some ancestral stuff of using my voice and being burned at the stake and moving through that real ancestral fear that lives in all of us. Um, Public speaking has always been one of the scariest things for me. And it's, my whole body would just want to fucking shut down, and I just want to shake and cry. And it's like, okay, you're gonna still gonna do it, and you're gonna feel that shaking, and you're gonna feel the tears rise up, and you're gonna fucking do it no matter what. And
I
that
think I
has
needed to
been,
hear that.
I did too, man.
I needed to hear it. I'm like, I'm in a freeze
because
more
we're
than I
not
like
gonna
it.
die from it, you know, you're
Right,
not gonna
right.
die.
And I'm not gonna die. And you know, it's been my experience. I've been the too much woman, the too much child, like my whole life, you know, and especially as a teenager, I was rebellious. Like I didn't give a shit, you know, like I remember being 16 and like abortion's wrong no matter what, it's murder, you know, and then like, you know, then that shifted for me based on the education and indoctrination I was going on, and still it was fierce. And for some reason, like, I don't know. I've been battling the last couple of years between like, okay, I'll have a burst of energy and I'll speak out, and you can look back on my Instagram and I have posts, women is not a feeling. And, you know, like I met that fire a bit, and then, okay, that was a lot, you know, like let's come back. And it is a lot. It's a lot to
It
take
is a lot.
on the projections of everyone else, you know? And it's hard to speak from a place that you're perceiving as love. As this is what I see as the best, not only for me, like it's not a selfish thing, but for humanity, for communities, for family, for children. Like it comes from like the deepest place in my heart to say these things that I know people are going to see as hateful, and that they're
Yes.
going to project that I'm hateful and I'm bigoted and I'm a TERF and I'm, you know, all of these things for different topics, you know? And it's like, even recently my partner's been going through a big process with Jesus, and you know, I've been right alongside him, and it's been so beautiful and so expansive, and we're like, how do we hold this in our retreat center when we have people that walk through our doors all of the time traumatized by the church? And can we actually like root in that pillar and be the invitation of healing, that it's like, well, that's separate from the church. The institution that is, you know, religion is not prayer, and it is not God, and it is not Jesus. Those things can be separate, and you can, you know, claim those things. And there's just, it's endless right now. There's so many things that I feel activated about, and I'm like slowly trying to, I made a video last week and it was like, let's just, you know, like just a little bit here and there. I'm like trying to push that edge, you know, but it's like, it's even to just hear you say like that you would shake and that you would cry and you'd go into the fetal position. It's like, to that extent, it's like, okay, can I allow that? You know, can I invite myself into that level of discomfort? Can I face that level of fear and still rise, you know? So that, that's really inspiring for me. And I really hope for women listening that like, that just is such a nugget of gold for every single person, every single woman on this planet. Like, yes.
One of my biggest things in using my voice is I don't speak for anybody else. It's what I put out there is never for someone else. It's for me. I write and I speak for my soul's liberation, period. When I was suicidal, the only thing that kept me from killing myself was I hold the belief that when we commit suicide, we come back and we relearn all our lessons.
I agree.
Because we didn't get it, right? And I would just repeat to myself, I was like, I'm not coming back and redoing this. I'm not redoing this. I'm not redoing this. We're not doing this again. So I'm going to sit in this fucking pain and I'm going to learn from it. And the pain of projection, the pain of loss, the fear of speaking your truth on whatever fucking topic it is purely for my soul's liberation and the lessons that my soul came to learn. And I mean, other people are going to get their feelings hurt in that, and I take zero responsibility for other people's feelings. You know, am I learning as I mature how to speak with a lot more grace and discernment? Yeah, but I also give myself a huge amount of grace because I'm a human and I'm fumbling and I say things that can be super fucking sharp and on the edge of mean at times. And I'm learning from it because I'm not perfect and I don't expect myself to be perfect, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, like Sam, the way that you were describing, like sometimes you'll speak a little bit and then you'll stop and you'll breathe and then you'll come and speak. And even this, like, I'll speak and I'll be sharp and then I'll fumble a little bit. Inhalation, exhalation, expansion, contraction. To me, that's so inherently woman. That is woman. That is birth. It is cyclical. It is, I'm not the same woman I am when I'm ovulating that I am when I'm menstruating. Sam, you've seen me. I'm sure you know. I'm sure you can tell.
I mean, I know all women. For sure.
You know, like, but like that's what I mean. We're all like that, and so to expect that, like, I'm going to speak the same way today that I'm going to next week, or that I'm not going to evolve, or that I'm not going to grow in some way, or that I'm not going to take moments of silence. Like our breath even does that. We're not always inhaling. We're exhaling. We're pausing in between inhalation and exhalation. You know, there's a reason for that. There's a design for that. There's a medicine in honoring that, I think. And this consistency of like, do I have to always speak and be loud, or can I share in different ways, or can I show up in other ways? And I see, Carly, in what you share, you know, you have this balance of like, yes, you have a sharp tongue and the things that you say can be evocative and really like intense and maybe erupt emotions in other people, but then you're grounded as fuck with your horses on the earth, and like Sam said, with dirty hands, and you're working with plant medicines and all of these things. And so I do see this inhalation exhalation there as well.
Yes.
I see this very specific intentional balance. And if we don't have one, if we don't have these grounding practices, whether it's with the earth or prayer or nutrition or et cetera, fill in the blank, how,
Self-pleasure.
yes, absolutely. How can we imagine that we could even speak with any level of sharpness or conviction?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think a huge practice for women is learning to inhabit their full capacity. And that fucking means knowing how to wield a sword. You know? So many women do not know how to be in their prey drive in that aspect of their nervous system. Um, and it is critical for the health and vitality of a woman's body to be able to completely surrender and go full parasympathetic and to fully activate that sympathetic drive where you know you could take someone's life if you needed to, you know? And knowing that you have that capability and choosing not to do it, that is what a healthy human being is.
Right.
Because we need to know, you know, we need to know our shadow aspects, what
Right.
we are
I'm having a
capable
download
of
as you're
doing.
speaking. Totally. Like, so what's coming to me is like this piece around pain, actually. Like you're speaking into like the pain and facing the pain and whether that's grief, whether that's physical pain, you know, like I'm sure, Carly, a big piece of your work is meeting the actual physical pains that exist within the vulva, within the uterus, these types of things, and inviting women into that. The pain of, oh my God, you know, like that discomfort, that fear. It's women are actually, it is our nature as well to be in deep relationship with pain. And I think that the avoidance, the download, because I was like going to put that in, and then you spoke and you said this sword thing, and I'm like, whoa, that's it. Like, it is our ability to touch that pain and to integrate it, to digest it, to be in relationship with it that actually gives us the power to wield the sword. Because we're not shying away from any aspect of ourselves, of life, of the world. You know, it's like if we are able to face that head on, you know, look at the narrative that we exist in around birth right now. Oh, poor women, like, oh, you have to deal with pain when you give birth. Like, let me give you an epidural. You don't need to feel the pain, you know, you don't have to suffer. And women are accepting that story. I see it in comment threads on Instagram all the time of like, that's so abusive and that's so oppressive that you would say that women need to experience pain. And it's like, well, birth isn't innately painful. There's sometimes pain involved, and if there is pain involved, it's meant to be a part of that woman's journey for that specific birth. For whatever reason, it's trying to shape her, it's trying to alchemize her. It is a part of the transformation, right? And it is, pain does create transformation. And the other like tying in piece is we bring the title of this podcast from Buddhist teachings, the middle way, right? But another beautiful Buddhist teaching is the differentiation between pain and suffering. You know, pain being an innate part of the human experience. And in this privileged, woke society, everybody is running in the face of pain. You know, the other way, like, what can I do to avoid pain? You know, and yet what that does is perpetuates the suffering. The suffering is, you know, what the mind generates. Our relationship to pain perpetuates suffering. And that is the Buddhist teaching around that. So it's like, I'm just having this beautiful download of like, you know, I teach like in the mental sphere, like lean into fear. I really like hold that space of like, follow your fear as like a North Star, honestly, you know, because what lies on the other side of your fear is what's going to, you know, it's the other side of your comfort zone. It's everything that you're praying for and calling in. It's on the other side of that fear. But on the physical level, even on the mental level, even on the spiritual level, you know, to actually orient towards that pain as well, to be willing to transcend the desire to avoid it and to really lean in deeply, understanding that it is a space of deep alchemy for the better.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's the work that I've been doing is walking with
Sure.
grief, being in relationship to grief. And that's something that I've been just with this last year and a half, especially, is sitting at the feet of the medicine women that are death and grief and pain. Because to me, they really are. They are beings that carry a deep medicine if we can be humble enough to drop our heart to the earth and say thank you and say and with this sacred curiosity and be like, what are you here to teach me? how am I here to change? What are you shaping in me? Like I keep getting this visual of, and I've used this analogy before, of a rock getting flown down a river and being eroded and shaped and molded into something different, for then a child to just pick up on a riverbank and skip the rock. Like, we don't know what joy our pain is shaping us into becoming, for the joy to be of service to another being, if any of that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure.
But just
For sure.
this like this medicine, this reverence, like true reverence to what is painful. And for me, I mean, even in labor, like, I shifted this descriptor of, like, is it pain or is it sensation? And
Exactly.
what information does this sensation have for me, right? And constantly coming back to that with every surgery I've had, everything that I've come to face, And yeah, yeah.
I think you guys just convinced me that I'm gonna have another baby. I've been like afraid of the fear. I have all these fears. I'm like, but if it's just love, and it's just like allow the expansion. That's a really big topic in my field right now, and I've been feeling like, it's a lot. It's scary. Can I hold it? But it's
And that's the thing. When people avoid the pain, there is no expansion, because there's two sides of the same coin. You cannot feel the expansiveness of pleasure without feeling the pain.
Right.
You will never touch it.
Which is a huge, maybe you can even just speak into that a little bit more with like the work that you do specifically with the vulva.
Yeah, I mean, it's so many women, when they start doing the work that I teach, they want to avoid the painful spots. They want to avoid the tissue that is on fire, that has the searing pain, or even the dull ache pain, because they don't want to actually feel it. And the only way to transform that sensation and move through that sensation is to sit and feel it, is to literally touch it with your hands and breathe into it and work it, right? Because that's how the pleasure comes. That's where the regeneration comes. That's where the full capacity to experience sensation comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I want to read something really, really quick.
Okay. And then I have a question.
I'm studying with. Okay, ask your question quick.
Okay. So my question is, so do you do work with scar tissue in, like, on the vulva or in the vagina?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's my question. And you don't know my medical history, that's fine. But I am curious, because I've spoken to various OBGYNs.
Carly's the woman I was telling you about, Emma.
Oh.
Carly's the woman this is the woman I've been telling you about.
Okay.
Dun, 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 dun. Carly meet Emma, Emma meet Carly.
Okay, well, here's our consultation. So, okay, but I am curious. So I lost my son in childbirth. I ended up going on life support for a few days. I was in a coma. Just to summarize it, I developed a fistula about yay big,
Mm-hmm.
so what, 2 inches, close to my cervix. And they ended up, so I had to have an ostomy in order for them to fully repair it, because it didn't repair, and I had to, anyway, it was this very long, arduous, very traumatizing experience. Sex is not painful for me, which is a godsend. But I was told that I will never be able to have a vaginal birth again, because the likelihood of having another fistula, because the integrity of my vaginal canal is
changed because of it.
Exactly. And I heard that and was like, okay, interesting. Why do you say that? Because they have their theories on, like, well, if there's a lot of pressure, unless baby comes really fast. And I said, okay, well, how do we know baby's not going to come really fast? And again, not asking questions to manipulate anything, just pure curiosity, pure let's have conversation. I want to understand what's going on with my body. And then I also have an episiotomy scar, which is significantly less concerning. But
did they use forceps on you?
Yeah. yeah, I was in labor for 4 days. I transferred after the third day. We were going to have a free birth, and then we transferred. And he had passed away like in early labor, and his head was pushing down. For quite a while, he was posterior, and he just wasn't coming. And I ended up having like a super rare blood infection, that my organs were shutting down, my kidneys, my
Going
liver.
septic.
Yes, I was dying. And so my question to you would be, do you agree with what the OBGYN said, that I
No.
could never have a vaginal birth, that it wouldn't be safe? And what would you suggest I do, or any women with similar vaginal scarring? What would you suggest? Yeah, how would you suggest that I show up? Like first steps.
I mean, the integrity of the vaginal tissue will have shifted for sure.
Absolutely.
Can it totally regenerate? Can scar tissue mend itself back into healthy tissue? 100% possible. It takes a lot of work, though. You know, it takes nutritional work, it takes physical work, it takes actual building muscle in your posterior chain to support the healthy pelvic diaphragm. There isn't one avenue. There isn't one thing that'll do it, right? Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I've worked
But
with
hopeful.
women who have had, you know, I had one woman who had 4 C-sections, and like after one C-section, they don't even want you to have another vaginal birth. She had 4 C-sections and then free birthed her baby, you know? Like scar tissue is not an issue at all anywhere in the body when it's actually being worked with and mended and integrated into healthy tissue again. Any scar tissue, any amount, doesn't matter how old it is, scar tissue can always change. Always.
Right.
Wow.
Right. I mean,
And that's a
again,
big part of the work you do, no?
Yeah.
and
Huge part of
again,
the work.
being in relationship with our pain, with our woundings, with our scars, be they emotional scars, physical scars, spiritual scars, whatever they might be, being in a space of relating and deep listening. I think that's such a key piece is, can we listen to our pain? Can we listen to what aches? Can we listen to the scars? Receive the medicine of the stories that they carry, and then alchemize.
Well, beyond the listening is actually the feeling, right? I think that is like, yes, listen, but then, feel. And that's what I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to read. I was just writing these notes yesterday, so I was doing a class with Wapio, and she actually quoted this man named Greg Braden. I don't know if any of you have
Mm-hmm.
heard of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the quote is, when you put thought and emotion together, you experience feeling. And it is through feeling that you experience perception. It is through feeling that we navigate our world. And just as we were talking about feeling, I just remembered that, and like it really hit me yesterday. I was like, that's such a beautiful way to put it, and like through feeling we experience perception, right? Which is like, that is like that moment of release, of like of change, of okay, like I can let that go now, because I perceive
And
something different.
whatever we cannot feel, we cannot work with, you know? So if you cannot feel the scar inside your vagina, if you cannot feel your vagina, you can't work with her. You
Mm-hmm.
have to have that felt sense, that real neurological connection. And this is my issue with the purely spiritual energetic lens, is the work needs to come into the physical. The work needs to be on the physical plane, because we are not just spiritual bodies. We are physical bodies in a physical incarnation for a reason. And that aspect of the work is the actual chop wood, carry water, get physical work with the work is the hardest for most people, because we can
Sure.
conceptualize and talk and talk and talk for days,
For sure.
right? But actually showing up and doing the mundane, boring shit day in, day out, the physical work, is the piece that majority of people, especially when it comes to women and healing women's bodies, that is the piece that they are missing. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful and inspiring, for sure. For sure.
We've been sold this idea that healing is some magical experience, and it's not. It's very mundane.
Mm-hmm.
It's very boring, and it's
Yeah.
really not complicated. It's hard, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not complicated. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of effort, right? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the doors of perception, right? Yeah, it's really incredible to see how quickly that can shift as well, you know? How quickly a whole new perception of reality can just come in many aspects of work, right? But yeah, specifically highlighting the work that you're doing is with the physical. It's like, you know, my sister has studied some internal pelvic stuff as well and speaks into that, and like has spoken into just in her own experience, like how quickly just like tending to a spot and being present with it for, you know, not, it doesn't have to be months of like, you know, going into that same spot in your vulva where it's sharp and where it's painful or where it's numb or whatever. Like just giving it the time that it needs, and the attention that it needs, and allowing for whatever needs to be felt to be felt. And the moment it's felt, it shifts. It's the
Yeah.
same thing in ayahuasca, right? Like I
Yeah.
watch it all of the time. It's like people will come in and they're like, oh, you know, I think I have something around this. Like, and it's not even fully in the conscious mind, you know? And it's like, because they're avoiding to that extent. And it's like, you drink that cup of ayahuasca and there's no avoiding anything anymore. That's literally what it is. That's why it's medicine. It's like, here's everything right in front of your face, right? And just not being able to avoid it for, you know, a ceremony's 5-6 hours and it can change somebody's life forever. Right? It's just coming face to face with whatever it is that you're avoiding feeling, and it shifts.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Should we
absolutely.
pivot to a different topic?
Sure.
Emma, do you have one, or should I bring in the next hottest, most hot of hot topics?
Go for it. I mean, I was kind of thinking like we could just go into abortion and talk about that if you want.
I was just saying, yeah, I'm like, let's do it.
Like, let's just go for it. Why not? Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
One of the most triggering conversations we could talk about with Carly Ray. Let's do
totally.
it. Let's use our time wisely.
And I remember an Instagram post that you did, and the way that you phrased it, and I'm paraphrasing here if I can actually remember it. You said
I can pull
abortion
it up too.
is ending life, not murder.
Hmm.
And I was so like, ooh, interesting phrasing. I like the semantic that you used, and I would really love for you to speak on that and just elaborate on that phrasing specifically.
I mean, this is deep, deep nuance,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Women have the ability to bring life into this world and to end life. That is inherently our ability and just a natural law of what it means to be a woman. And to me, it's a very infantile perception and mental space that someone's living in when they call abortion murder. It's just like, I'm a hunter. My husband's a hunter. We're not married yet, but I call him my husband.
Me too. We're in the same ballpark.
Yeah. When he goes out and shoots an animal, is it cold-blooded murder? No, it's not. It's ending a life for the regeneration of our lives, you know, which is this reciprocal relationship that we have with these animals. And I've had 3 abortions. And am I very clear that I chose to end that life? Yes. And that choosing to end that life was in service to my life, you know? And this is this can be a really uncomfortable spot for women to choose themselves over martyring themselves, because I could not have been a good mother at those places in my life. And I have a very clear contract with myself in this life that if I am going to bring children earthside, they are going to have, I'm not passing, like, obviously, am I going to be a perfect mom? No, that's not going to happen. But I am consciously doing the work to not pass down generational trauma. And if I had chosen to be a mother at that time in my life, that would have been impossible. It would have they would have been born into a lifestyle of trauma, right? And ending a life in that way, like, we have been the gatekeepers, I guess I will say. Women have been the gatekeepers since the beginning of time of choosing this life is coming through, this life is not coming through. And it is, we have wanted to project all this moral superiority onto that, right? We have been controlling our menstruation and working with birth since forever, with herbs, with practices. And it's just been since the Industrial Revolution that this has been that abortion has been demonized and had all these projections laid onto it. And
So
unfortunately, abortion is being taken into this extremely radical place now. And we have to have these conversations because abortion is being abused, right?
right, right,
And
right.
sex is not sacred anymore, and women don't hold their bodies sacred anymore. And that has led us into this world where they're practicing abortion, late-term abortions, you know?
Right,
And
right.
this whole conversation requires so much nuance and maturity. And it's like, can we say this is right and this is wrong, but this is right and this is wrong, to every single instance? It's so fucking complex.
I think it's the most complex, honestly, topic. Like, I mean, maybe that's just because I've been in a more of a process around it lately. Like I said, when I was young, I was very anti-abortion, and then I was very pro-abortion, and now I feel like I'm landing in like somewhere in the middle, but really wanting to look at some really important nuances, And when you say like the rhetoric specifically of like I wouldn't have been a good mom then, like I have so much respect for that. And I think the reality is that is sometimes a cop out. Like
Oh, for sure. It can be. Yeah.
I think that it's used a lot,
And it's
and I
subjective.
think that and it's subjective for sure, and it's not ultimately my place to decide where a woman's at and what is right or wrong for her, and I will voice that, right? But I think that there's a much bigger picture, right? And I know you've spoken into that. And so actually my specific question, because you've gone through it and you've said 3 times, like that's not once, that's three
No,
times.
it's 3 times.
And
Yeah.
and so like what have been the consequences of that? And specifically like physically, like have you had to do deep work in healing your womb or your vulva? Had there been anything that you've had to heal? What was your emotional
So
experience? Like was it just easy to do that?
my first abortion I was 19 years old, or maybe I was 20 years old. I was still deep in my drug addiction. It was the heaviest place of my drug addiction, and it was no question in my mind that I was having an abortion. And the doctor that I all 3 of my abortions were the pill. I've never
Uh-huh.
done a surgical abortion
Okay.
because I
Yep.
always caught it very early. I was always
Right.
very in tune with my body, even when I was a drug addict. And the doctor, he was this old white man who'd been a doctor for fucking ever, and he was so kind and so compassionate, and it was a really positive experience. Was I upset? Was it a hard decision? Yes. But I was a drug addict. I was like, I'm not bringing a child into my life right now. Um, and my second abortion, I got pregnant. I had an IUD in place. I'd had the IUD for 2 years. It had always worked. And I was living in the States going through a bodywork training, and my uterus got shifted in this bodywork training, and my IUD shifted. And my partner came down to the States to see me. So I hadn't seen him in like 2 months at this time. And he came down for my birthday for the weekend. And we were having sex, and he ejaculated inside me, but I had an IUD, and I was also menstruating, and I got pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And like I
The
had that
mysteries
IUD
of
for a
women's
reason.
bodies.
I had that IUD for a reason. I didn't
Mhm.
want to have a baby. Like the chances of me getting pregnant with an IUD is the copper IUD is like 2%. The chances of me getting pregnant while menstruating with an IUD is like 1 in a fucking million, or more. And that one psychologically broke me because I was like, I was sober, I was clean, I was in a loving relationship. But I didn't want a baby. I had the IUD for a reason, right? I was on this trajectory, and I was like, I was going back to Africa because I've done quite a bit of work in Africa. And I was just like, I can't have a baby right now. I don't want a baby right now. And before that abortion, I've done quite a bit of work in Africa. Where I've lived at an orphanage and did physical therapy with children and babies in the orphanage. And I know what it's I know from working with those children what the face of an unwanted child looks like. And I personally will never bring a child into this world that is not wanted, that is not consciously chosen. I think there are too many children who are born of an unconscious reality, and that's fucking heartbreaking to me, right? So I had that abortion, that again was, I had the IUD removed, which was extremely painful and caused me a lot of issues. And then I did the pill abortion, and it really fucked with my psyche, that one. I went through a pretty dark time going through that abortion, because I felt like my body failed me because I was doing all the right things, right? But it is, that abortion is what initiated me into all of this work, really. I probably wouldn't be doing the work the way that I am if it was not for that abortion. And
what
then,
about that abortion led to the work? Was it the harm with the IUD that you had to heal, or
yeah,
what
so the
specifically?
pain after the IUD, the distrust with my body, all of that layered on top of itself. I got pregnant in April on my birthday. The abortion happened mid-June, and then that August I moved to Victoria and started my doula training, and that's when I entered into birth work in the birth world.
Did you study at Pacific Rim?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. I studied my doula training at Pacific Rim in Victoria
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, it was a great program. Yeah.
It was. So the owner I have some thoughts about, but anyway.
Yeah, I got into, like, this was so long ago. This
for
is
me
like
too. 10 years, 11 years.
Yeah, I think mine was 12 years ago.
So you're
12 or 13 years ago. So it was before they went a little crazy. But when I moved to Victoria and going through the doula training, and I was like, how can I support women in birth when I've had abortions, and I don't want to be a mother at this point in my life. I have zero interest in that. And then I found a woman who did sexological body work and the intravaginal work, and a few sessions with her, and my vagina completely changed. And my relationship to my body completely changed. And then I went back to Africa and I was doing birth work. And when I landed in Africa, I got my period, and then I lost it. I didn't bleed again for like 4 months. And when I got home with the same partner, we were together for 9 years. I hadn't had a bleed in 4 months, so I didn't think I could get pregnant, and I got pregnant. And I would have kept that baby, but he didn't want that baby. And I after all my work in Africa, I was like, I will never keep a child who is not wanted. And had an abortion, and I had, again, it was the pills, and I had no issues like physically from that abortion. I do think, like, if a woman is going to have an abortion, the pill is the best option to go. That said, women you have to catch an abortion early. You can't have like a 12-week abortion from the pills, right? All of that to say, though, when I look back at who I was, and like, yeah, I was in this relationship, and it's not like I was sleeping around, but were we having safe sex? No. I mean, even though I had the IUD the first time, or with the second abortion, I had the IUD. He still was ejaculating in me. Shouldn't have been doing that. There are still layers of irresponsibility that I have no problem owning up to. And I hold zero amount of regret or shame around my abortions, because I am so clear that if I'm going to be a mother, it is going to be a conscious decision. It isn't, it is not going to be an, oh, oops, I got pregnant, what the fuck am I going to do? Panic state, I refuse to pass down that kind of imprinting in my lineage, because the way a child is conceived imprints into their soul. We know that clearly. And the amount of consciousness that I am bringing into my conception is extremely high at this stage in my life, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So one question I have is like the psychosomatic connection. And so I'm curious if like through like after that, if there's been any, you talked about these points that can exist within the vulva that feel numb or painful or sharp or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. Like I'm curious if any imprints psychosomatically happened for you that you had to work through, or it was just the IUD, the one time where there was actually like physical harm done.
I mean, I definitely went through a journey of feeling like a murderer and a horrible person and like just the most evil woman. How could you do this? How could you make this choice? How did this happen again?
Right.
And I had a conversation with a mentor around all that, and she's like, Carly, what if you made the most loving choice for you in this moment? And what if that baby came for a split second to allow you to choose yourself for the first time in your life? And that really shifted things for me, because abortion has been so politicized and we have projected so much morality onto it in our lives. Like back, you know, 200, 500 years, 1,000 years ago, women weren't taking pregnancy tests. Women were choosing how many babies they would have. They weren't just pumping, not every family was just pumping out 14, 18 babies all the time. You know, this is our inherent right as a woman to choose when we give birth. It
How you
comes
doing,
with a
Emma?
massive amount of responsibility.
I
It
need
does, I agree.
I needed to hear all of that. Yeah, all of it. Yeah. Yeah, in my journey in choosing free birth, I've battled those thoughts a lot. Um, I'm the worst person, I'm a murderer, I'm all of these things. And yeah, just like holding the responsibility of like of my choices of I wanted to free birth. That's what felt safest and most correct for my family, for my son, for all of us. And
For yourself.
yeah, and he ended up dying and wanting to hold the responsibility of that while also holding truth. And the truth is every choice was a choice of love. And Floyd has changed, like his passing, the way that he died, the circumstances that surrounded it, everything was such a gift that he gave me. And it's a painful gift and one that I would return if I could. But at the same time, it's completely changed everything, everything. And I can see how there is such sacred service and medicine and love that continues to pour out of it. A decision made in love has the result of even more love that is coming out of it. And I can see that as well in the work that you're doing. In that really beautiful phrasing that your mentor shared with you. What if this was the most loving choice for you? And in that choice of love, you are serving other women. You are finding and cultivating that medicine, stewing in that medicine that is now pouring out with every word that you speak, with every woman that you hear and are of service to and bow at their feet and receive their story, with every horse that you tend to and take care of. Every single time you look down at your hands and you have dirt under your fingernails and you are planting something new, or you're holding your husband in your arms, right? It's carving out a capacity to love because the choice was inherently loving.
Yeah. And this is what I was speaking to earlier. Knowing women really need to know that they have the capacity to end life. And when we know that we have that capacity, it pushes us into an even higher level of responsibility. Like,
Mm.
I know I'm capable of doing that. Now I have to live up to the responsibility of that capability and make the choices that are in coherency with that responsibility. Like my husband and I, we are so on it for having responsible sex, because we're not ready to have a baby yet. We're entering into our conscious conception journey, but we're not there yet, and we are so fucking on it, you know? And when I look back at my past relationship, I have a lot of love and respect for what we had in our relationship, but I was with a man who did not respect women. And then I have to look at my own self-worth of, why did I choose a man who does not respect women at all? And how I did not, take the responsibility to choose a better fucking partner, right? So many women are in horrible fucking relationships with shitty fucking men, having babies with shitty fucking men. That's a problem, right?
Right. And it, like, that brings me straight back to this patriarchal blame the patriarchy piece. And it's like, that is one of the biggest things that isn't in access for us women when we access our power, is actually understanding that one of the main things men desire in this world is access to our temple, right? And when we just give that flippantly, like, we're not calling them into action, we're not calling them into growth, we're not calling them into their best selves so that they can be that provider, that protector, that divine masculine that they have the capacity to be, that the world needs them to be, and that ultimately we as their partner need them to be. So it's huge, and so it's like, yeah, that's why the work that we're all doing in our unique ways, and calling women forward into these contemplations and spaces of transformation and healing, it's so important, because we are in a constant feedback loop with men, right? And I think things like feminism have very much so made us want to see them as separate, and punish them, and blame them for everything, and make them the bad guys. And I mean, that's a whole conversation in and of itself, the distortion there. But and that could even play into the abortion thing. And I think that for me, I think I would like to also just highlight with the abortion topic is that the disembodiment piece, and how that plays into it being and how it plays into it being actually really harmful and really misaligned, and harmful to the women, right? Like, and to society in many ways. But it's like, I've heard of women having 17 abortions. It's like, an abortion is not a pregnancy prevention.
It's not contraception.
Exactly. Yeah.
Contraception.
Yeah. It's not contraception, and it is feeding, because abortion has, it's so tricky, because it has become so nonchalant in the women's sphere, in feminism, in this way where multiple abortions is just what it is for a woman, or late term abortion, it just is what it is. We are feeding this spiritual war that is keeping women so fucking disconnected from their hearts and from their wombs. Because should an abortion be a heartbreaking choice? Of course it should be. To me, it's like, when we kill an animal, it fucking breaks my heart, and I cry, and it shatters me. And on the same hand, I'm so fucking grateful for that life to feed me.
So, okay.
Right. And
but my question here, though, is, how do we know that abortion collectively is being treated as this flippant thing, or that's just the sensationalized headline conversation that we're seeing in the media and on social media? Like, how do we know that that's actually translating into real life experience?
Well, I mean, just from the amount of women that I speak to, and the amount of conversations that I have, and the amount of women who are so locked out of their hearts and their wombs when they speak about their abortions, to me, that's all the evidence that I need, to show that. Because it's to me, it's also like, the fact that a woman can consciously, electively choose a C-section is the same. It's all the same pattern. It's all the same fucking spiritual battle that is happening to keep women and men locked out of their bodies and out of their truth, and keep them in this mechanistic, technological fucking timeline that we're on right now, right? Because in my perfect world, if a woman's going to have an abortion, it's going to be with a midwife on the land in ceremony, you know,
I echo
the
that
way
for
it
sure.
should be, not going to a fucking doctor, receiving some fucking pills, going home and bleeding out on the bathroom floor all alone. Severing her from her body and possibly sending her into a state of psychosis, right?
And I think I like the nuance is there is that we could use a pill and still be in ceremony if we're
We
held, in a
absolutely, if we're
circle
held.
and with women, and yeah, and it's about that holding for sure. And I think like what I have seen in my personal field, but I live in a very specific bubble for sure that I can name. But I do see, a lot of the women in my field that have chosen abortion, choosing for that to be exactly the catalyst that you're speaking into.
Yes.
Right. And so I do think that that is a massive possibility. And if it was just that, but, I've also then, when I return to the Matrix and I've had more conversations there, like there are a few women that I can, think of, and exactly what you're saying, like the way that they speak about it, like you can feel tangibly in it that they didn't grieve anything.
Yes.
Right. There was no like pain there. There was a rhetoric that was quickly put in place to just like cover that, and they just hold steadfast to that. And I think that that's where, like we can really explore the nuances of harm, and yeah, it's definitely a big topic. It's a big topic. I really want to echo as well the piece that you're saying around just that we have this ability to give and take life, and that we are the gatekeepers, and you've spoken to both you and your husband being hunters, and my dad is also a hunter. That's like his main thing in life. We've had our dogs trained like forever. They're bird dogs. He's a deer hunter. He killed a moose last year or the year before, his first, and so he's deeply passionate. He knows his land. He would never move from his land because he knows his land as a hunter. And I think that that can actually be echoed in a way for men through specific practices like that have traditionally been men's, specifically hunting, and how that actually gives them a space to have that same reverence for life and for their power, and also but like to even just hear you speak that, like to be in tears and in that deep gratitude and that reverence for that animal's life. And it's actually something that my partner wants to do with my dad, and he's such a lover. Like he has the biggest heart of gold, and like he literally like would watch like something small die and definitely be in a process about it, and I'm like, okay, like I can't wait to see this. Like you're gonna be on the ground sobbing for sure, but I think that again, like to bring the whole scope of this conversation in terms of like meeting the pain, that's the point.
Exactly.
Is to go into that and face the reality, the depth of what just happened there, and allow for it to change you ultimately.
Yeah.
And allowing
Yeah.
our language to shape that. Because even there was something that you said where I was like thinking about the rhetoric that we have around abortion, especially this modern, like your body, your choice. And that doesn't feel super accurate. But what came through as you were talking was it's not your body, your choice. It's your body, your responsibility. The responsibility of, are you taking or giving life? What are we, how are we in relationship to our pain? How are we in relationship to our vulva? How are we in relationship to our womanness? Like what it means to be female and a woman, and it goes beyond exactly what you said earlier, beyond what we're wearing or how we're doing our hair or not doing our hair, or like it's not a costume, it's not an outfit, it's so much beyond that.
Yeah.
It's so much beyond that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the relationship to our blood. We are all here because of our blood. If a woman's menstrual blood ain't online, babies ain't coming through. And that relationship and responsibility to what it is to be a bleeding woman is fucking massive.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's something that you do teach in your work as well, no? Like, do you
Mm-hmm.
go into teaching about like the cycle and, just how to honor that? And
yeah. Because most women have no fucking clue,
Yeah, of course.
They have they don't know the difference between their phases and how their body is shifting and changing, and the difference between their vaginal and cervical mucus. It's that disconnection is just feeding this deeply disembodied world that we're living in, the way women are giving birth, the way babies are being raised, all of it ties back to this disembodiment, right? This not knowing. It's, yeah.
We have a young nanny here. She's about 20 years old and she's been a part of our family for forever. And she just recently started dating a kid in town as well. And I was like, okay, you know your cycle? Like it was like my first question. She's like, no, what? And so I've actually been sitting down and doing my best in Spanish, but she's so interested, like, and it's so awesome, to see her, and I think that that's like the reality. Like it taught me something in interacting with her because she comes from a completely different world, a completely different culture, like completely different set of traditions, and yet that disconnect is still very, very much so there. And there was a severance here, like women here
Yeah.
are almost the only women that are birthing at home here are expats, really. Like they used to have beautiful traditions around midwifery here, and the women would birth in the mountains, and they had their herbs, and they had all of their things for their Waltuskas and all of these things, and that's been severed by the medical industrial complex to such a degree that, like, there was a woman here that was being transferred. She gave birth in a small town in the valley. She was being transferred to Cusco because 3 hours after she gave birth, she didn't have milk. And I was like, what? Like, these are the people that are educated to be caring for you, and they are concerned that you are not producing breast milk 3 hours after you gave birth. Like, what is happening here, And so, like, it's just, the reality is that it's everywhere and it spans across the globe. But the other reality is that women across the globe are hungry for the remembrance, and they want to know and they want to learn. And I see it, even in this young girl from a different world. Like, she's just like asking me, like, can we sit down and go over the next lesson, and teaching her to track her cycle and understand the different seasons and the energies and what it means and how she can support herself, how she can know when she's can conceive a baby, as a big piece. It's such an interesting time to be a woman on this planet, for sure. And I think that, yeah, I just pray so deeply for this work that you're doing, that even, that I am doing, to just spread far and wide, to touch the lives of as many women as possible. And just for conversations like this, I just crave so much more of it. And I just respect you both for pursuing it, Emma, for you to have gone through what you've gone through and to just rise in the way that you are rising, and, pursuing healing in the way you are, and being fierce in your grief without, allowing for it to completely obliterate. You allow for it to be this constant space of alchemy and transformation. And you too, Carly, like, wow, to have come from, drug addiction to, you haven't even spoken into it, but, to go through tending to your mom and, her crossing over, like, the 3 abortions, like, the amount of grief that you have also faced head on and are standing much taller and much stronger because of it. Like, you are both examples of how specifically pain and grief are the most beautiful catalysts for health and beauty and freedom, right?
Well, and you've also shared how, like, the grief of your friend who passed away, Sam, has been such a teacher and such a medicine for you. And I think you've spoken into it a little bit on an episode where you got to a point in a ceremony where you were grateful, and I think there is something that I do want to speak to as well, because we're talking about all these ways that we can show up to our bodies, and we're talking about how, like, the medical system controls the woman's body, and abortion is a space of, yeah, like, are we keeping life? Are we taking life? How are we interacting with life? And I keep seeing this common theme of control. How can we control our circumstances? How can we control our body, whether it's with a pill, whether it's with herbs, whether it's by free birthing? So I'm controlling the world around me by free birthing so doctors can't negatively impact me, or I'm going to control an outcome and birth in a hospital where there's no risk at all, which is not fucking true. And I want to really bring in this piece of the mystery of, like, we can plan to consciously conceive, right? As you're talking about, like, yeah, you want to prepare 2-3 years in advance. And sometimes babies want to just fucking come through, and they do, you
100%.
know? And like, and how do we also hold that responsibility with the mystery of we can show up, do our work, do our part, and I have no idea what a baby's soul contract is for me. I didn't know what Floyd's soul contract was. I think actually intuitively I might have, but I didn't know what he wanted or what his path was going to be, you know, and no matter where we choose to birth, no matter how we choose to interact with a pregnancy or our vulva or our uterus or any of these pieces of our womanhood, there are still aspects that are out of our control, that are so rooted in mystery, that are not to be known. And that is such a medicine of the womb space. It is shrouded in mystery and darkness. And yes, we can explore all these things. And it's so important to learn and educate ourselves and gobble up all the information that we can and learn from teachers. And how can we also sit back humbly with this I don't know, and reverently being like, wow, look at this world around me. Look at the earth, the mountains, the waters, my body, your bodies, and be comfortable saying, I don't know. As wonderful and amazing as it is to be able to speak with conviction and power, can we also be just as powerful when we say, I don't know?
And I think that's, to me, that's the whole point of being the constant student, is so that we can be like, I don't fucking know.
I
Like
don't fucking know.
I've
I agree
done
completely.
more work than I would say 90% of women on a conscious conception path, and I have no idea if I'll ever get pregnant again. And that's just what if a baby's meant to come through, a baby will come through. And we still show up on our mat, and we still are a student of life, because it's holding that responsibility and being like, I really know fucking nothing in this life, all at this in both hands at the same time. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, what comes up. We briefly kind of like spoke into feminism, but like I think that like the obsession with control and the illusion that control is empowering is a big root in feminism
Big
and
time.
feminist ideology.
Especially when we just look at the birth control pill, right? And the psychological imprint that puts onto women's bodies. There is no, and that's what getting pregnant with an IUD while menstruating, and then getting pregnant again after not having a period for, 4 or 5 months really taught me, is there is no controlling birth in any way, shape, or form. Can we influence it? Do we have choice? Yes. Do we have control? Absolutely fucking not. It's a wildly complex stance.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where these conversations are so important. They are the pillars where we can just hear each other's stories, learn from them, and not to be like, oh, okay, well, now I know how to control every outcome. So if I free birth, I know that the outcome is going to be great. Or if I have a midwife, I know that there's going to be no complications. Or if I have a cesarean, like there's no way to know any of these things, And even I heard of this Australian OBGYN who's doing maternal assisted cesareans, and I am flabbergasted. I was crying for hours just like looking through her work. And basically, she scrubs up a woman who, for whatever reason, is choosing an elective cesarean. And I mean, maybe she has some previous health complications, but she reaches into her uterus and pulls her baby out and
Right.
is completely aware, and the cord is attached. And so I think there's also an element of like a lotus birth or delayed cord clamping, but baby goes right onto mom, not taken away, but fully covered in vernix and blood and meconium and all the things, and is right on mom. And that in itself is such a powerful nuance. And I would love to have that OB on here to discuss like what led her down that path. But to me, there's so many, when we really break down opinion and barriers and the things that block us in beliefs, and we open our eyes to what is actually possible for women when we choose to show up and listen to what it is that they're asking for. what is on your heart? What is coming up for you? How can we best serve you? You know, away from protocol, away from licensure and all of these things. How can we just be there for women?
Ask it as a question to you, Carly, maybe to speak a bit more into the mystery and versus the control. But why would you say that there is more empowerment available in the path of, you know, dancing with the true essence of our feminine, you know, the mystery and stepping into the space of responsibility versus the fixation on the control piece?
I mean, responsibility is freedom. You know, they go hand in hand, in my opinion. When a woman takes responsibility for her life, then she's not under this false idea of, like, you are in the driver's seat when you take responsibility, you know? Otherwise, you're just handing all your power over to the powers that be. And um
But wouldn't the woman that's choosing the elective C-section because she has a wedding to get to or she wants to get back to her job at a certain date, wouldn't she see that as responsibility and taking
I mean, it all
that
comes
path?
down to priorities, you know? There are people who are deeply asleep, and their idea of an empowered lifestyle is just so radically different than what, you know, I believe is an empowered lifestyle. And when we come back to physiology and biology, and we look at women who are making those kinds of choices and being like, this is my choice, this is my life, this is me living in my power, it's like, okay, let's look at how healthy you are. Let's look at, you know, the real heart, concrete facts of your physiology, your body, your hormonal levels. Let's look at your children. Are your children on a bunch of ADHD medication? Are you popping a bunch of pills? Majority of people, especially women these days, are living on wine and fucking pills, you know? So let's look at facts in that way. And, you know, there these concrete real life things are like, okay, are aspects that people really don't want to look at, you know? Like when I have a conversation with a woman who wants to come work with me, I'm looking at the tone of her skin. I'm looking at her body. I'm looking at the way her mind thinks, the way she speaks about herself to tell me how healthy is this individual? How in their body is this woman? You know? Because everybody thinks they're fucking healthy this day and age. And then you start to ask questions and you get the real fucking answer. I want to look at somebody's stats on their cell phone and look at their time limits on all their apps. That'll tell you everything you need to know about somebody, you know? People need to have real fucking hard, honest look at themselves and their lives and see who's walking their talk and who's living these pseudo healthy embodied lifestyles.
Pseudo healthy embodied. I like it. Yeah, it's true. And I think, you know, like to bring in a little bit of grace, I think that the reality is that there's always room for improvement.
Always, 100% for everybody.
And for everyone, always, you know, and that's like a standard that I hold to myself. Like there, you know, I always say like there is no healed. Like maybe like, you know, maybe the enlightened being, you know, at some point that transcends to another dimension. I don't even know, you know.
We're all dying.
Like,
we're all literally moving closer to death.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And it to me it just comes down to is like, how do we want to live this life? Is the rate at which we are living longer lives, you know, 100 years ago we were living 50, 60. Now we're living 80, 90, 100. And it's like people really need to sit with is like, do you want to be a burden on this earth as you age, or do you want to be in your body, have a sharp mind, have a strong body, and still live life, or just degenerate and fucking die? You know, because death takes a lot of health. You know, death is an expression of health. It's the next iteration of what our body is doing. And we can die in this degenerative, painful way, or we can die in this really beautiful, healthy way.
Can you speak into that a little more?
I mean,
Like, 'cause as somebody who's observed death, like really, head on.
Yeah, it takes energy to move out of this physical body and back into the spiritual realm, just as it takes energy to move from a woman's womb onto the earth. It's just the next process, right? And so many people are dying in this extremely unconscious way because they haven't thought about their death at all.
Right.
They haven't looked ahead to the future. Just like I said, people are living in this instant gratification, living in the moment. And it's like, no, we need to think about the long game here, long term. Like when I'm on my deathbed, I want to be fully fucking conscious. And I know I have a say over that. I know I have control over that by the conscious choices that I make every single day, for the foods that I put in my body, the thoughts that I think with my mind, the way I move my body. All these things are leading me up to a beautiful death, because that's what I want.
So what do your daily practices look like?
I mean, I have a very I'm very much a routine person. I have a 2-hour morning routine that if I don't get to have my 2 hours in the morning, I'm pretty fucking unhappy. And it's centered around circadian rhythm. So in the winter in Canada, obviously the sun rises quite late in the day. So I start a fire and I sit with the fire and I do my breathing practices and I have a self-touch practice. And all of my food is locally sourced. I would say 90% of my food is locally sourced, outside of, rice and lemons and things like that. I'm very conscious of where I get my food from. I'm very conscious of the water that I drink. I'm always working on my mental limitations, and can I work with all these mental blockages that we all have all the conditioning to be a more loving person, to not fucking self-sabotage myself in the goals and the dreams that I want to bring forth in my life. So yeah, my practices is centered around my body. And they're very specific practices, like even the way I breathe, the way I touch myself is centered around supporting female physiology, supporting oxytocin production in my body to then support progesterone production in my body. Everything is nuanced in the way I do that, specific to a woman's body. Yeah.
Amazing.
And does your partner do something alongside of you for himself that's more like in the masculine? Like, is it something that you guys share in your life and partnership?
Yeah, the way he works out is very different from the way I work out. He's got his own, like his morning routine is playing with our healer. Because they're just boys, and they're roughhousing and they need that for their testosterone, both of them. And my little healer serves him so well in that way. And I'm just sitting in front of the fire while they're being absolute chaos. And yeah.
That's so great. I love that. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. And I guess to wrap up, I'm curious, what is one thing that for all the women listening that you want them to walk away knowing, understanding, or a practice that they can take with them? What is like one little piece of something that you want them to turn this podcast off and remember?
I mean, self-responsibility. Women really need to look at their priorities, and look at and have a real honest conversation with themselves of, what do I want? What kind of body do I want to be living in? What kind of life do I want to create? And then start making the choices that serve that, It's absolutely critical. And I mean, when it comes to women's bodies and women's health, women really need to, and this can be a rabbit hole that women can go on their own search into, women really need to cultivate oxytocin every single day. And cultivating oxytocin every single day is going to reorient your whole life to change your body to make the life that where a woman's body can actually, because a woman's body cannot thrive in a dopamine, adrenaline driven, linear go world. Women cannot thrive in that. So when we look at really have a hard look at ourselves and be like, I want to cultivate oxytocin, I want to live the dream life. What choices do you have to make those things happen? Because they're both intertwined completely.
And how do you
Yeah.
cultivate oxytocin?
That's another 2-hour conversation.
Amazing. Okay. We'll have to have a part 2.
Episode 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, part 2. Or also just go work with Carly. And so is there any way that we can also just highlight a bit your work? Is there anything, like, we didn't really share like clearly the depth of like what you do? Maybe you can just take a few minutes to speak into that as well.
Yeah, so I've been a manual therapist for 20 years, and my realm is the female body. I support women in experiencing what they're truly meant to experience in their bodies, and working with the female pelvis and the brain is my whole jam. The best way to learn about my work is my Instagram, though. I have a really hard time defining what it is that I do in a short way, because it's true. Yeah.
You also have an amazing program for men.
I do. I have a really beautiful class for men where I teach men all about their anatomy, how to work with scar tissue in their penis and their testicles. And it's a 2-part class. So first part is them learning about their anatomy, and how to work with adhesion and scar tissue and trauma in their anatomy. And then I teach men how to touch a woman's body. I teach men about women's full vulva-vaginal anatomy, because most men have no idea how to touch a woman. They've all been taught by porn pretty much. So I guide women into, it's like, what touch actually serves a woman's body, and how do we reorient ourselves to touching women in that way?
Amazing.
So beautiful.
Amazing.
Yeah. You're an inspiration. Thank you so much. It was such a joy to get to connect a little bit more one-on-one. I know we've, interacted over Instagram and social media a bit over the last few years. And so, yeah, it was awesome. It was super beautiful to sit down and really dive deep with you. And yeah, maybe down the road somewhere we can do a part 2. That would be also great.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so
Of
much.
course.
Yay.